Joining me now is South Australian Senator Alex Antic and Sky commentator Liz Storer. Great to have you both here for My Australia Day party. How are you both? Liz.
Great, thanks, Rowan.
Happy Australia Day. What did you do? What did you do, Liz?
Oh, I went down to Circular Quay. So big furore down there. There were guns blazing. There were several displays. Patriotism was on display down at the quay. It was really, really wonderful to see, and that air of celebration just permeated the whole place. It was terrific.
Fantastic. Alex, how was your day, mate? Happy Australia Day.
Happy Australia Day, Rowan. And look, my day was great. I'm still, to be quite honest, getting over the concept of Big George exterminating greenies with his Daleks. So that set me back years on him. But I had a great day. I had several citizenship ceremonies and lots of new Australians, every one of them happy to be in such a great country. So we're all pretty excited.
OK, so Liz, we learnt today from the Sydney Morning Herald, who must have published it through clenched teeth, that support for Australia becoming a republic is slipping, according to a poll in the Sydney Morning Herald. Is this because the woke millennials are all crazy about Harry and Meghan, or is there something more to it than that?
I think there is something more to it than that. Firstly, I don't put much stock in polls. Of late, the industry has taken a nosedive reputation-wise, and I don't think you can ask 1,222 people their opinions and then come out saying 40% of Australia oppose a republic. But for argument's sake, let's say they're right, and this is the lowest support we've seen for a republic since the 70s. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the world is looking more and more like an uncertain place these days. And nothing works like that to make people appreciate old alliances, basically. What really amused me about this poll, though, is that it was honest in saying a quarter of the respondees simply ticked to this question, I don't know, because let's be honest, the average Aussie doesn't know about the Governor-General and his role, doesn't know how the constitutional monarchy works, wouldn't know the first thing about the 1975 constitutional crisis where Kerr gave Whitlam the boot. So they're just responding as best they know how, saying, mate, I don't have a clue. I think the numbers that we're all gagging to see is the support, whether it rises, I think we all know it will to a great degree when the Queen goes on to glory. Long may she reign,
well, exactly.
but we all know she can't live forever.
You're giving me nightmares already, Liz. Alex, Liz mentioned old alliances or old thinking. I was astonished to see that arch lefty and feminist Naomi Wolf is suddenly getting a bit twitchy about lefty authoritarianism. She tweeted yesterday, I always believed I was a progressive, but a lot of former progressives are heading at breakneck pace towards straight-up Stalinist authoritarianism. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. Alex?
Well, this is not surprising, I guess, for many of us. I guess, like me, Rowan, you've probably watched this movement, if you like, drift in this direction for many, many years on end. I mean, you only have to look back a couple of decades ago to the environmental movement, which was relatively polite and benign, the sort of the Greens movement, if you like, you know, the Bob Browns of the world and others. Incrementally, that has drifted, I think, a long way into this sort of world of authoritarianism and this sort of championing authoritarianism. You know, we're now seeing these people cheering on pulling down statues, the cancel culture that we've talked so much about, you know, lockdowns. You know, I mean, we've sort of drifted into this world very, very quickly in a relatively short amount of time, and it's in one sense it's pretty refreshing to see at least some of these left-wing commentators acknowledging how far this is going. To me, this is almost a little bit like starting a campfire in your front room, and before you know it, the whole house is on fire. Well, this is where these policies go. I think it's got out of control, and many of them are starting to realise it, and I think that's going to be increasingly the case.
I hope you're right, Alex. Liz, Boris Johnson is thinking of replicating our internal border controls and quarantine regime. Do you think he'll be on the blower to Dan Andrews to get some hotel quarantine tips, or maybe a few private guards? What do you think, Liz?
I certainly hope not. Look, I think this is just, firstly, overkill, because to get into the UK at the moment, you all have to have a negative COVID test, a very recent one, obviously. So even if there's 300 of you on the plane, you just tested negative. So making people quarantine on the other side, it looks more like some sort of political grandstanding than something that's actually practically going to be helpful. And let's face it, throughout the pandemic, even at the height of it, the UK has been dreadful on borders. They were letting in hundreds of thousands of people every single day. If you look at the numbers going through Heathrow this entire time, I tell you what, if I was a POM living under that restrictive lockdown, one of the worst I've ever heard of, and definitely the longest, you've got to ask yourself how angry you'd be to see those numbers flowing in each and every single day. We're talking about hundreds of thousands. So I just say this is rather late and a bit unnecessary given the other measures in place already.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, first week of the Biden regime, and one wag has tweeted, day 4, gas prices skyrocketing, 72,000 jobs lost in 72 hours, heading back to energy dependence, no promised stimulus checks, no plan for COVID, Black America snubbed, women's sports erased, China given access to power grids, and back to war in Syria. Is this a fair assessment?
Well, it's a pretty blunt assessment. I've sort of thought in the last 4 days you can almost hear the sound of rustling paper going through the American populace. Those apparent 80 million people that voted for Joe Biden, but none of them seemed to turn up to his rallies.
Yep.
Yeah. There was all 3 of them that turned up with circles around them, sitting in chairs. But I mean, you can almost hear them rustling around for the receipt, wondering whether or not they can return him. I mean, look, I think that tweet is a little bit humorous in a sense, but the truth is, all of those things are right. They've lost 72,000 jobs in 72 hours. We're seeing fuel costs going up. I mean, there's this business of the Keystone XL pipeline where, somewhat tragically, the plumbers and fitters union in the US, having backed Biden through his campaign, are now saying, what do you mean there are going to be people out of work? Well, of course there are. I mean, certain things in life that are absolutely fundamentally going to happen: deaths, taxes, and Democrats weakening the American economy. So I think, look, those who are surprised by this, how could you be? Having said that, they are our strongest ally, and if it wasn't so important, it would be amusing, but it's not. It's a very, very precarious situation. Let's hope they get together. But if we ever see President Kamala, I don't think things are going to get any better.
You're both giving me nightmares.
We will.
We've got Charles on the throne and we've got President Kamala Harris. Oh my God, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Liz and Alex, so great to see you both on Australia Day. Happy Australia Day to both of you. Thanks so much for coming on Inside the News tonight.
Thanks, Rowan.